So we looked at our plug here, and everything on it is okay except for that gray. So we're going to make a little circle there. Don't really like the way that looks. Now for 4-mix, this is for trimmers like the 91, the 90s, the 130s, those guys. They have a whole different style engine in them, and we will talk about that maybe some other time, but this is NA for a 2-stroke chainsaw. Now our muffler condition. So let's stop right now, and we'll put our plug away. We'll flip this thing around, and let's check out a muffler. All right, let's take a peek inside here and see what we've got going on. Now, let's, now overall, I'm not seeing any crazy discoloring on the outside. I don't see a whole lot of horribly ugly soot or carbon buildup anywhere on it, so all that looks good so far. Let's open this guy and see what we've got here. These are just going to be really, really short little screws right here. So we'll get them and put them over to the side. Now our others are 8mm, and they have a little bitty washer on the bottom, so we're going to be real careful to not lose those. And on these, I just kind of stick my finger under them, grab that flange, and just slide it out of there. This one, I'm not going to worry a whole lot about it. I'm just going to let it slide right up out of there with it, with the muffler. All right, so you can see these little washers are hiding down in here. And let me spin you around here. You can see those little washers stayed there, so I'll just dump them off. Let's see what we've got in here. Uh-oh. Y'all see that gray in there? Little pieces of aluminum stuck to that muffler shell. See that in the light. That's not usually a good sign. Let's dive on down here and take a closer look. Ooh, I see metal laying right here in the bottom of this. So when I look at our muffler, we do have a good spark arrestor screen there. No problems with it other than the metal all over it. I'm going to give you a spoiler down there. Look down there at that piston. I really don't like the way that looks. So let's go ahead and get back to our sheet here real quick. All right, so for our sheet, it says muffler condition. Our muffler condition looks okay. As far as its function is okay, lots of aluminum inside. All right, spark arrestor screen. We looked at it, it looks great. Okay, it's okay. Other observations, we're going to get to that right here on this one, number 16. So again, we have lots of aluminum there. In 16, we have carbon deposits in exhaust port. No. Piston condition. Well, I think we just saw that a minute ago. Let's take a closer look down in here. We'll spin this around so the light's in it a little better. And let's dive in and take another look. Can you see down in there? Those scratches all up and down that. That's not good. Now, I'm going to take my thumb. I'm going to show you what I'm going to do. See this flywheel right here, this also called a fan. I'm going to take that thing. Now, my piston, or my spark plug's out, so I should be able to turn this pretty easily. And I'm rolling it. I'm taking my thumb through that hole I just showed you, and we're looking at this piston. Are you seeing all that? You can't hardly tell where the rings are on that thing. It's scratched from the top to the bottom, deeply scored. I'm not sure if you can see how poor those rings look. Oh, that's a bad deal. So there we have it. All right, so now let's record that. This just got a whole lot more expensive, didn't it? So let's, now we're starting to see maybe what this right here up on our carburetor is showing down here. Now, again, when we're doing this, we're kind of detectives on the scene. We're trying to figure out why this guy died here. This poor 880 died on us. And what we're trying to do is put it all back together of what caused it. Because if we look down in there and we say, yep, it's got a scored piston, we're going to put a new cylinder and piston on it, we bolt it right back on there. What did we solve? We didn't. We just threw parts at it. We saw they were bad. We put new ones on it. Hey, come pick your saw up. Well, they're going to be very disappointed after they run this thing for an hour and then find out that it did it again. So we are going to have to do our due diligence in finding why it died, not just confirming that it's dead. So when we look through here, we have our piston condition scored badly. Piston rings free. No, there's no movement in that at all. They are stuck tight. And let me show you a trick. Let me turn this here. I'm going to show you a little trick on how to determine if those are indeed stuck. It's going to be hard to tell on this saw, but you can see they're just wiped completely tight in there. But on a saw that is not in bad shape, I use this brake and parts cleaner with a straw right here, and I take it and I just put a little squirt right there. Then we run it back and forth, and you'll see the piston ring move up and down, and it'll cause a little bubble in there. That's about the best way I've found to be able to see that. And that brake and parts cleaner dries real quick, but you can see those things have practically welded themselves in there. There's been so much aluminum transfer across those rings. There's no movement in them. They are stuck. So we're going to record that as well. So they are stuck tight. Ones that are not stuck, you'll see that liquid squish up and down a little bit, and that's really the best way to tell. All right, so our piston rings free? No. Cylinder wall. Well, I think we could probably look through and see the other side. Let's scroll down and look at it. Okay, there we go. Not sure if you can see that down in there. Let me add another light to it. There we go. There's some wiping back in there, isn't there? But it's not scored too bad on the back side. That is very notable. We need to make sure that we record that. Now you can imagine what the front side here on the exhaust side is going to look like with all that scratching. It's probably going to look horrible. So cylinder wall condition, we're going to write intake side not too, right that big, bad. Again, it had that much wiping in it. We're going to be changing it, but we still need to make note of that. All right, let's flip our sheet over. Other observations. We just got done writing everything we could down, so we don't really have anything else to write there. 17, our cooling fins. Now, we notice we've got a problem here, so we're going to, again, make sure we check every last thing we can. So we'll set this aside, and let's look at our cooling fins real quick. Okay, now let's take a quick look, make sure we don't have anything stuck in there. Mud daubers are really handy for that. There's a little bit of dirt right there. That's not going to stop anything. That's probably just a little piece stuck up there. It's not the end of the world. Looking on this side, things that'll be a big problem are things like an oil, like if bar oil leaks down in a saw and it covers all this in an oily film and then sawdust sticks to it. That'll be a big problem. It insulates it too well and it can't dissipate the heat back off these fins. Mud daubers will fill these little cores full of their eggs there and cover it all with mud, and then you've got a real mess. Or they can be broken off. So what we're looking for here is anything cracked, broken, missing. Everything there I see looks good. Everything there looks okay. Now, our next one is fuel filter appear dirty or restricted. Now let's take a look at that. Here's where our handy dandy little fuel filter tool comes in. And I love this little guy. I'm going to move you over here. Set you down right there. And let's tilt this a little bit so we can get down into our fuel tank. So we're going to set this over to the side and take this little guy here. This is just a little, super handy fella. Just reach all the way down in there and grab a hold of him and pull him out of there. Sometimes he just needs a double over to get out. There we go. Perfect. Now let's look at him real quick. Do we see any problems with him? I think it looks okay. Now I'm also looking at this line while I'm here and making sure it's sealing around it well. And all that looks okay. I don't see any problems there. So let's record on our, I'm sorry, I skipped ahead. Okay, so we spoke earlier about our fuel, and we're here on our fuel have a stale odor, debris in the water tank, color of fuel, other observations. So we have our fuel. Again, this was dumped out earlier, wasn't it? Remember, we do this just as soon as the unit comes in so that we can do it right in front of the customer if it's for customer's machine. So this was done earlier. We're looking at it, and that also gives it time to separate. We look in there. I don't see any separation in there. Everything there looks good. There's no grit down in the bottom. Well, does it have a, what was our next question there? Stale odor. So no, I'm not going to stick my head down in it, but I'm just trying to give it a gentle smell. Everything there smells good. It's fresh fuel. That looks good. No junk in it. Now I'm going to take a peek down in our fuel tank real quick. Fire up our phone here again. Look down in the bottom. It looks just clean as it can be. I hope you can see that down in there. Yeah, there you go. It's just as clean as it can be. No problems down in there. All right, so we'll be able to check off our spots here for our fuel. Everything there is okay, and debris, none. Color, great. None. And again, it's really important to do this. Now what happens if we get a unit in and it's already had the fuel drained out of it? Then we would write here under observations, received unit with no fuel. So we just make note of that. That way we don't later on try to tell the customer, oh yeah, the problem with your saw, most always it's a fuel problem, and yours had bad fuel in it. Well, they're going to know you're lying to them, and we don't want to do that. We want to make sure that they see us as being completely honest and open with them. And if we have this, and we don't have this would be something we would write down too. As soon as the unit came in, no fuel. That way we wouldn't see a can of fuel laying there and say, oh, that must be going with this saw. We'll put it in the tub, and it didn't go there. So when the machine comes in, if it's empty on fuel, flip this sheet over and write on the back, unit received with no fuel. That way fuel doesn't accidentally get put in there and then they think we're telling them a story, because again, the purpose of this right here is to make sure that they're seeing that we're trying to do them an honest job. We want them to come back and build that trust, and that's what it's all about. So as we look through this, just a quick tip there for you. Now 19, we have fuel filter appear dirty or restricted. We've taken our fancy tool, we've pulled it out, we've looked it all over. Everything on it looks good. The connection again looks good. So we're going to take a moment here and we're going to write okay. Filter torn or damaged. I don't see any tears in it. It looks really good. It's not cracked or broken. It's sealing on it really good up there where the fuel line. I've seen them crack sometimes at that fuel line. So we're in good shape there. And we're going to talk more about that fuel line in a minute, but while we're here, we're looking. So filter torn or damaged, okay. Condition of fuel line, right there it is. Fuel line, it looks okay too. No crack in that thing. And we just kind of look it all over real good. And another thing I like to do is kind of give it the pinch test and just feel that thing. If it feels gummy and you get done touching it and your fingerprint is still in that, then we know we've got a fuel line problem. And if we're leaking air right there in that fuel line, a little pinhole, then guess what? We're not getting the right air-fuel mixture. It's aerating our fuel as it goes in there. Then our carburetor doesn't know what to do with that because it's set up to run perfectly liquid fuel, and it'll end up giving us a lean condition, and we definitely don't want that. So everything on our fuel filter and associated parts right there is okay. Now we want to pressure test our fuel line. So we're going to go ahead and get started with that. I have to get a few more tools out, and we're going to test that to 0.8 bar. Okay, to test our fuel line, we're going to go ahead and remove our air filter adapter that goes on top of our carburetor. Really love these little T-handled tools. They're real handy for this. Pop that over out of the way. Slide this completely off. Get this down out of the way. Again, I don't mind closing that fuel choke plate rather, because there may be dust behind that thing. There we go. All right. So here we have really good access to everything we need to see. What first thing we're going to do is let's go ahead and plug up our tester. I hope you can see this right here. Yeah, I'm just kind of holding this filter. I'm just going to pull this. I've got our fuel line here held. I'm just going to pull this filter off. And now I'm going to, oops, knock that off of there. Let's stay up there. How's that? Now we're going to grab our pressure tester. And it comes with this hose. I just take that hose and stick right up in that thing real good and far so that it seals. All right, there we go. Now I don't have to strain with that anymore. Now we're going to take our fuel line loose up here at the top. I'm going to use this little guy as well. Kind of help me out. Get a hold of that thing. There we go. Now, all right, so we've got our fuel line off here. Now grab this little plug. And we're just going to stab it right down in there so that it doesn't leak. There we go. It's just a push fit deal, no big deal. All right, so we'll slide that tool over out of the way for a moment. Now let's go ahead and pressure test this to 0.8 bar. So we have our dial here, and we have 0 to 1 bar. That's the black up there. So we're going to go just a tick before that. Now this thing has vacuum and Druck. That's if you're German, I guess. Vacuum and pressure if you're here in West Virginia. So we're going to kind of see that, how this thing slides back and forth. Pressure, put our end on it, and now we're going to, now use some caution here because there's not a lot of air volume between right here and here. Now if you're filling up a fuel tank or a crankcase, you got to pump and pump and pump to get there. This little line doesn't take a whole lot. So you'll see here, it's already climbed 2.5 bar, just one squeeze. So it's not going to take a whole lot. Don't get a little overzealous there and wear it out. It's right there. There's 8. So what we're going to look here and see if it's leaking anything. Looks like it's holding good, doesn't it? No problem. Now, let's see what else we have here. So we're going to go ahead and I'm just going to slide this over the other direction, release that, pressure off of it, and then we'll show you our next little bit to check. All right, now, there's 2 ways to do this, and it would make more sense to slide that down inside there, but this sometimes doesn't like to fit on them. Sometimes it does, but this plug, it's kind of hard to get that to fit up in there sometimes. So I tend to do it in that direction and then just pop it back off, then come up here and do this one. You can do it the other way if it seems to work for you, but that's usually the direction I do it. Now, what we're going to test now is our fuel tank. We're going to pressure test it to make sure we don't have a problem with it. If it doesn't pressure test or vacuum test correctly, then we're going to start diving into some more issues. So let's go ahead and record our findings for our fuel line. We just pressure tested our fuel line to 0.8 bar and it was okay. Now pressure test our fuel tank for leaks. So first we're going to pressure test it, then we're going to vacuum test the tank vent. So I'll show you how to do that. All right, so we have our pressure set up. All we had to do down here is just close the cap. That will test us. And what we'll be doing is we'll be testing everything from this fuel line all the way down into the tank seal where the fuel line goes through, testing the tank housing as well as the fuel tank lid. So we're going to pump this guy up. Now again, it's going to take a little bit of pumping. Oops, better switch it to vacuum. So it's going to take some pumping to get that big volume of air dealt with. I don't think we're sealed right there real good. I'm just listening for a problem somewhere. All right, that one's not one to seal real good. Let's try it again. All right, so we've attempted to put this in here. I'll show you real quick. And build pressure, but it's leaking right there in those barbs because the barbs on where it's been all of its life are slightly bigger than these. So what we're going to do is just eliminate that from our equation real quick. and just use a length of stock line to deal with it. So we're just going to pop this fitting off right here. Well, maybe we're not. Let's see. Oh, we just unhooked the... Okay, I see what we got here now. Let's just do that. Let's just slide this over out of the way. A little bit of sawdust over there. Really don't want to be careful there. Let's see if we can stick this down in that same port and get a little better seal. Nope, we're not. Where that's so much bigger, we're just having trouble getting that to do right. We really do need to test that. So let's see. Let's go ahead and unhook our linkage here. Let's just pop that off. We have another screwdriver. Takes a different screwdriver for on some of these Torx pieces. So we're just going to ease this off right here. Kind of a little bell crank retainer. And that should now allow us to loosen this up out of here. There we go. It's hooked on this side. Sometimes you have to pull the top of the handle, but sometimes you don't. So there's that one. And we'll set him over here to the side with these two little guys. I think we're going to have to pull the handle. Usually there's a screw right up there in the bottom. Get hold of it there. There we have it. All right. And then, so we have that screw out. Let me loosen this. Let me just bring you around here real quick. You can kind of see how this comes together. Tripod to set down. There we go. So this kind of hooks right under here. We just roll this top handle right there. So to install it, you just lay it right down there and retains all those little pivot points. So we'll set this over out of the way. Pop this guy. Sometimes we can leave some of these pieces. I think we can leave this one. So let's just ease this little fella off of here. Nope, she's not one to cooperate. That thing should come out of there. Let me go get a pair of pliers. Pop that fella right up out of there. There she is. And that'll just go right back down in there. It's time. Then we can leave all that there. That should all set still. Now we see what's going on there. That's fine. Now, see how that little guy goes down and hooks in the bottom. Maybe you can. Let me move you around here a little. There you go. Now, we'll see if we can ease this guy up out of here now. Off still on the carburetor. Let's ease this piece out. And that's our shut-off piece. It goes up, kills itself. Grounding out. Okay. Get that over there out of the way. Good, there's that one. always, always, always take a picture of how that junk comes apart. It will make you pull your hair out sometimes a week later when your parts get in and you're ready to hear the thing run. You can't figure out how the little linkages go back together. Ease that fella out of there. Again, that thing is important too for airflow purposes. You don't ever want to overlook one of those little bushings like that. All right, so I think we're ready now. Pull this out. So this carbon, now there'll be one more tube down on the bottom, and that will be our pulse tube. That thing is tight. I lied, it's up here at the top. No wonder it's being so tight. Hold on a minute. It starts from down at the bottom, but it's up here at the top. That has a metal ring on it. That is very interesting. Let's ease you off of there. How's that sound? Perfect. Maybe we need one of those metal rings on a piece for our fuel line to test. But I'm just going to set this fella over here out of the way now. And that thing has huge plates in it. That's an awesome saw. Okay, so that looks good. Now, here's our fuel line. And that fuel line's pretty hard. I don't know if you can see how stiff that thing is and hard, and it wouldn't seal back on that small one, so I'm going to order a new one of those, because that can also give us a problem. If it's not sealing well in those spots, it will allow it to suck air right there, and we definitely don't want that to happen. So I'm going to go ahead and make a note down here, and I'm going to put in my comments, order fuel tank to carb line. That way we know we're going to need one of those. All right, so now I'm going to take just a minute and clean back some of this sawdust around this fuel line, because I really don't want it going down in the tank. Again, a little piece or two here or there is not be the end of the world, but we really want to keep it clean as we can. All right, so that looks pretty good. Now we will, let's try to retest our fuel tank. There's a whole lot of doing just to get to that fuel tank, isn't it? Or that one little spot on the test. All right, so I'm going to push in on that. All right. See if we can get it up there. It's a big old tank. The best we can get is 0.3 bar, and it seems to be holding that pretty good. Very good. All right, now let's go ahead, turn the vacuum, and test our vent. Now the tank needs to be empty for this, else you'll have a mess. Now you notice I'm not able to pull a vacuum on that. That's good. I don't want to be able to pull a vacuum, because if I was able to get a vacuum on that gauge right now, then I would be noticing that our fuel vent here would not be working. It would be allowing fuel to, or air rather, to not come back into the tank. The purpose of this vent is to keep it from going out, but allow it to come in, air that is. So if we were able to pull a vacuum, then their vent would be bad, and then we would end up with problems like a vapor lock. We wouldn't be able to draw fuel up into the saw after it ran for a little while. You'd pull the cap and hear a huge hiss of air go in, put it back on, crank to get the fuel pump back up to it. It'd start and run good for a little while and then quit again. So that would be our symptom we'd have with that. So far so good. Looks like our pressure test for leaks. Okay. Vacuum test our tank vent. Let me back you up here a little. Vacuum test our tank vent. Okay. Intake side of piston condition. Hard to believe we're almost to that again, isn't it? So we're going to look at that here in just a moment, see what we've got.